Nothing on my sleeve. Nothing in my hat. Am I about to perform magic? I mean, why else would I say nothing up my sleeve, nothing under my hat? Because it was what I thought to say at the moment that I hit go live. I'm not going to do magic. I don't know any magic. Don't be putting any expectations. Don't be putting your expectations on me. I ain't doing no magic. Shoot. I can't even do reality, much less can I do illusion, right? All right. Doing my best, you know what I'm saying? Yo, get off my back, Jack. Hi, Lisa. Yeah, happy Friday, y'all. That's right. That's right. It's Friday. Thank you for reminding me. 601, March 26, 2021. It's a Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Okay, no magic. That's right, man. Like I said, I can barely handle reality. How the hell am I handling illusions? Or maybe I handle illusions because I can't handle reality. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe my whole life is just magic. Magic of one sort or another. You know what I'm saying? Hola, Laza. Bienvenido. So, who else is here? I'm doing my own thing. Hey, Kathy, Rose, Rachel, Debbie. Hi, everybody. Yo, so those of you who got here late, you missed my magic act. I'm sorry, I didn't do any magic. Uh, I'm barely hanging on to the moment. I'm barely in reality. Just don't push me because I'm close to the edge. I'm trying not to lose my head. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep on going under. It's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep on going under. Anyways, so this new rap song just came out. Uh, I just heard it today. So I don't know. Maybe I'll know this guy. He's from Chicago, Vic Mensa. I thought this was kind of cool. So I went ahead and threw it in at the last minute. In fact, it didn't even make the YouTube video because I didn't get it together. I literally threw the first song, Freedom, into the mix at the last second because I saw the guy being interviewed. Why is this so subdued? Anyways, you're watching later. You don't need me to play it for you. You already got it. What am I think I'm doing, huh? Yo, listen, yo. Yeah, it was windy. It was windy on the way home. It was windy, Chris, all the way home. And I got lost up in Allen, man. I was northeast. I went place I ain't never been on my bicycle today, ladies and gentlemen. I almost pulled a rabbit out of my hat, uh, but instead it was just a drink of water. Because what I did was I was gonna go for a bike ride today, and so uh, Chris said he was gonna be up at the bike shop. It's near the house. I'm like, yo, I'll meet you up there, man. I love going to the bike shop. So I jump on my ride. I get up to the bike shop. Chris shows up. We're screwing around, talking to the guys. All right, time to split up. Hour and a half later, 11:30. Dig you later, Chris. Chris got to go home, get a bike, do all that. Me, I got my bike. I'm just gonna boogie, man. I'm just gonna head out. I don't know where I'm going. Don't really matter, right? So, but as soon as I leave, I get in the hell. I get this idea. I'm gonna stop at Sprouts next door to the bike shop. I'm gonna get me a sandwich and I'm gonna eat it on the way because it's almost lunchtime. So I stop. I get a buffalo chicken sandwich. It's a wrap. I throw that in my saddlebag. Out I go, and I'm zigging and zagging. Y'all know how I do because I tell you all the time. A lot of times I don't know where I'm going. I don't care because I got my e-bike, right? Well, there's a problem with an e-bike. I'm going to tell you at the end of the story. So I zigs and I zag. I get on one place and then I get to another, and you're making judgment calls as you go along. I mean, it's like It's like, you're going for a ride in the country, but you don't know the country. So you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll take this road or maybe I'll take that road. At least I've done that, right? So I'm doing it on a bicycle. Well, I get to the end of the Blue Bonnet Trail. For those of you that are local, Blue Bonnet Trail ends at a street called Chase Oaks. That's cool. So I take Chase Oaks. I takes it north. I go under the highway and I go to this park. I use the bathroom and then I head north. But instead of taking my usual route, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to just stay on this street. I'm just curious where it takes me. Well, it dead ended it. And when it dead ended it, I turned left. And I just went and I went and I went and it went. And together, the street and I went. And we just kept going further north, right? Into this city called Allen nearby. And I'm going and I'm going. And finally, uh, I'm not the street went from being like kind of busy to not busy at all. I'm in a stone residential neighborhood with big ass houses. One house had a pony in the front yard. I ain't lying. Had a pony in the front yard, had all kind of stuff. I mean, it was a beautiful piece of property, tucked away off in the back somewhere, right? I mean, back away from civilization, you know. So I'm just enjoying it, except for one thing. There's no way out. But I don't know that because this computer I use only shows you about two streets at a time. So I keep going, and then I'm like, oh well, I guess I better take a right here. I take a right there, dead end. Okay, turn around, go back. Well, I'm gonna go this way, dead end. So eventually I have to go all the way back and start from where I left off. But I don't want to do that, man. I'm hard headed. So I get on a different route just to spite my computer. And I head off and I get lost again. And then I get found. And then I get lost. And then I get found. All right. Two more things about today's ride, and then we'll move on to more important matters. I decide that although I'm beginning to wear out, going into the wind, coming home. You want to go into the wind when you leave and head out because you want the wind in your face when you have the most energy, not the least. Buy and plan that, all right? So I'm coming back, wind's in my face. I'm in traffic because in order to minimize distance. Sometimes you have to get on main streets, which means traffic, higher speeds, but you do it because it's just straight. You don't zig, you don't zag. So I'm going straight. You know what I'm thinking? Handel's ice cream, baby. Okay. I'm thinking if I push myself now, I can get to the ice cream parlor and still get home in time to podcast. That's what I'm thinking. So, Ben, I'm pedaling my ass off. All right. I get to the ice cream place. Now, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm sitting on my bike and I'm thinking, blueberry cobbler. I was going to get it last time, but I didn't. I'm going to get it this time. Okay. Blueberry cobbler. That's pedaling. I get there. Flavor of the month. Chocolate Oreo dough. I have no idea. It's got chocolate, it's got some cookie, it's got some dough. So I'm like, hey, give me a taste. It's like, right? Remember, give me a taste, when you was buying some blow, give me a taste. Yeah, it's good. Give me the whole, give me a whole gram, right? Well, I get there. Give me a taste of that, but I'm going to have the blueberry cobbler. So I take the taste of the month, chocolate Oreo dough, Oreo, and it's good. It's good. Okay, no big thing. So flavor of the month. So how long do you have the flavor? The month. The month is almost over. Give me that. I get my blueberry cobbler another time because the blueberry cobbler, that's a staple there, right? I haven't had it yet, but it's a mainstay. Okay. So I'll end up changing the whole plan. So I pedaled and pedaled and pedaled. Blueberry cobbler, blueberry cobbler, blueberry cobbler. Only to change my mind when I get there. Ay, Dios mío. Caramba, muchacho. Huh? Anyways, get back on the bike. I got I don't know, about 10 miles to go. Here's the thing about the wind. When you bike into the wind, you use more energy. When you use more energy, and you got an electric bike, you're using more electricity. So what happens is my battery starts to drop precipitously. Now my bicycle weighs about 70 pounds. Not something you want to bicycle without the help of your battery at the end of the day. So I made it home with a little battery to spare, but I got to tell you, man, it was an absolute bitch getting home. I ain't lying. And I was talking to myself too. I was talking to myself. I was talking to my friend Tracy. Tracy, he was publishing some conservative stuff on my Facebook in response to something I posted. And while I'm writing, I'm trying to think of responses, reasonable responses, because I've known Tracy a long time. Anyway, so I'm like, the voices in my head got, the volume went up. The voices in my head got voluminous. There was lots of voices in my head. Now on to what I wanted to talk to you about. I do torture myself, but Kathy, that you're both, Rose is right. I'm hard headed and I torture myself. But here's the thing, and then I'll move on. I get out there. First 20 minutes, you're like, what am I doing? Why am I bicycling? Why don't I stay home and clean the house or something? Something that's not nearly as debilitating. You get on the bike, and after about 20 minutes, you're like, you know what? This isn't bad. I'm comfortable. I was cold, but I had on some, extra clothes this morning. And everything's groovy. And I stopped at this waterfall. I'm going to post the waterfall after I'm done with the podcast. I took a picture, a video of the water. I sat by the waterfall for a while and just kind of sat there quiet, closed my eyes, listened to the waterfall. See, when you listen to water in a creek and you just sit there with your eyes closed, focus on the breath, something, it's not profound happens. It's just something simple happens. Something simple like serenity. You're just in the moment. You're not streaming ahead into the future. You're not tugging at the past and trying to drag it with you into the moment. You're just present, right? So I did that. And there were a couple of kids coming around with their families. It's a nice little spot. It's a residential neighborhood. They didn't bother me. They didn't bother me at all. So, and then I had a little snack and off I go. And then I found a place to sit and have my lunch by the water, by a pond, big pond in Plano. I sat and had half a sandwich. And then I left, and that's how I spent a day. So the hard-headed, torture yourself, all this, the payoff is that while I put myself through that, the rewards are significant. The rewards of being outdoors for 5-6 hours and just digging on what's going on, the rewards of health, the rewards of being able to eat like a pig tonight, and tomorrow morning I'm out the door at 5:15. 5:15, I will be heading out to bicycle with my friend Paul. By the way, Chris is listening. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Chris and Becky may be listening. I'll tell you what. He's good. He's a good biker. He's a good bike mate, bike buddy. And I'm going to explain what a good bike buddy is in case you don't have one and you're looking for one. I want to tell you what to look for. Look for somebody that won't harass you. Look for somebody that when you're doing what they don't want to do, they don't give you a lot of grief. And let me explain myself. Because somebody said something this week about, oh, you're not solo so much anymore. No, I've been riding with Cindy. She's good. She just follow the leader. Chris is good. Paul's good. What they have in common is an ability to just let it unfold. They don't get agitated if you change the plan on them and say, slow down or speed up, or you know what, I don't want to go there. Let's take a left here and try this. Um, Paul and I, we've been riding for 6 years, and we haven't had an argument in 6 years. We don't hassle each other. You know, if one of us says, I'm uncomfortable, bop, 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 then that's it. You know, okay, if that makes you uncomfortable, then, you know, what do you want to do? I can do something else. You know, I've been with people that they get on their bike and it's an agenda. It's a pre-planned agenda. Groups do that. I mean, if you go to the bike store, they have groups going out in the morning. Any of you who may own a bike, if you're near a bike store, a lot of these bike stores, not just my bike store, or you get online and you can find on Facebook or on meetup.com, you can find groups that go out, you know. And if you're afraid to go by yourself, sometimes that's a cool thing. Or you're a real sociable person. I'm not. I've gone out with some groups, and you know they're like this, you know, with they got, and if you say I'm not comfortable with that, they're like, well, this is what we do. This is what we do. This is where we're going. If you don't want to go, see you later. Okay, you know, that's fair. I mean, that's the plan when you join in. But I'm kind of loosey goosey, man. I'm kind of more like, you know what? I just want to follow my own path. So I don't work with groups, and I don't work with people. But so Chris and Becky, they're going to go to the Richmond Bike Mart tomorrow and look at bicycles. I wish I could be there, but Saturday morning is my main ride. All right, so back to the topic. Now, as I say back to the topic, some of you may be thinking to yourself, he wasn't on a topic. How can he come back to something he never was at? So, in other words, if I said, let's go back to my house, but I was never at my house, you would say to yourself, but we were never at your house. How can we go back to your house? That would be legitimate. In this case, in my mind, I've been many places, and now I'm going to go back to one of those places. And I'm inviting you to follow me back there. Now, it's 18 minutes into the podcast. Here's a revelation. It's the same revelation we've had so many times in doing this. I had no plan whatsoever. I'm going to tell you about the music. The music, except for the last minute rap song, which is only on the Facebook group. If you're on YouTube, I'm sorry. I'm talking to the Facebook people for the moment. Except for the first one, and I threw that out last second. The others, dig it. GTO, I forget what else I got. Well, I'll tell you what they were. They were leftovers from days when Talking Heads, Road to Nowhere, Ronnie and the Daytonas, Little GTO. There's no rhyme or reason. Here's today's rhyme or reason. They were in tabs because I didn't include them in other podcasts. That's all. That's the only reason they're here, right? Is I didn't use them at some other time. Four Non-Blondes, I just dig them, man. I just came across them and thought, you know, you can never hear What's Up by the Four Non-Blondes too many times. Okay? So let it roll. I want to tell you about YouTube. I watched my YouTube podcast yesterday. First time I went into it for quite a while. It really is not a good quality podcast in terms of the video. I didn't have problems with the audio, but the video sucked. But I don't know why. As I'm watching, I'm podcasting on the same camera. Maybe that's it. The first camera has the quality, and the second one has a deterioration in the quality because you know how transmissions are. The more you transmit, the less the quality of the transmission. I have no idea. I'm going to try to find out. Okay, so I know there's a problem on YouTube, but I don't know how to fix it. So back to the topic. Again, I gave you a little pause. You're like, You still haven't gotten to a topic yet. How do you get back to something you never did? Perfectly legitimate concern. Perfectly. And now, without further ado, I want to introduce a topic. So yesterday I told you, I just would like to, I want to snap my fingers and be gone. I want to be in Italy or Thailand, or I don't want to be here. I'm not leaving because I'm 68. I moved from Chicago to Dallas to Arizona, back to Dallas. Each move was challenging, and then there were moves in between. So there was moves from one location to another in those cities. I'm tired of moving. I know when I went to Arizona, I waited 3 years after I sold my business. The plan was sell my business, move to Arizona, and I kept hesitating. And what I finally realized was I had lost my enthusiasm to move to someplace in the country by myself. So I was seeing Rachel, and I was taking care of the girls. So I said to them, "Come on," and they said, "Okay." So the four of us moved, and I liked it better that way. So uh, I don't have the energy to leave Dallas. For me to leave Dallas, literally leave it, I would need a lot of factors to come together. So when I say I'm sick of this, I want out, I'm saying that as a declaration, but not as a plan. I got nowhere to go. I'll be visiting Thailand, probably Korea, see my daughters in Korea. I'll probably go like I do. I'll visit other states. And I hope to go to Europe, maybe Eastern Europe. It's cheaper than Western Europe, and it's just as pretty. So I've got some plans, but that's not getting away from the United States of America. I went to a concert this week, and by the way, I should have prefaced when I went to the concert on Tuesday. I should have told you all that I went to the Meyerson Symphony in Dallas. It's a big symphony. It's beautiful. They only allow 300 people in the whole place. They only allow musicians on 6 feet apart, I think. So there were 24 musicians and a conductor and 300 people maximum. And everybody had to wear a mask from the time you entered the building to the time you left. So it was a very safe environment. I've been vaccinated twice, whatever. And by the way, a wind concert is not very rowdy. You don't have a lot of. Are you coming in? You don't have a lot of people screaming, standing up on their seats and bouncing around, right? So I I don't want to. I'm just sick of the politics of the United States. Uh, so I publish stuff on social media. Sometimes it's a blog, sometimes it's just a blurb. Those of you that are my friends on social media, you know, I try to stay away from political stuff that usually lasts about 3 hours, and then I can't resist. Um, and I have some conservative friends. I mean, in the main, they've given up on trying to persuade me, and I've given up on trying to persuade them. Tracy, he hasn't intruded into my page in a long time, except when non-political posts. But he did. He did this yesterday, and it escalated. People were kind of attacking him. He was attacking us, and finally, I'm like, where am I at with that? Well, I don't care. I don't care whether Tracy or anybody else ever agrees with me. But here's something that my friend Dennis in LA and I said to each other yesterday. He said it to me. He said, I don't like talking to people that don't agree with me. And I said, That's not true, Dennis. You do like talking to people that don't agree with you. You like persuading people. You're good at it. He's a salesman, by the way. He's a very bright man. But he has discovered what I've discovered, that in the era of Trump, you cannot persuade. See, I'm used to being persuasive by virtue of my handling. Let me say the word manipulation of the facts. Facts are facts. I think how you present them maybe should be called a manipulation because you're characterizing facts in a certain form and fashion. When I do a trial, the prosecution has the same facts and they manipulate the facts to try and get a conviction. I'm usually better at manipulating the facts or telling the facts or creating the story of the facts better than a prosecution. That's not the important thing. I quit arguing with a lot of people, even though I don't mind arguing so much. I don't mind debating. I don't mind trying to persuade you to my side. But we're not persuading anybody. We are not, let's use liberals as a we. I know you're all not liberals necessarily, but let's use liberals as a we. We are not persuading conservatives. We are unable to take a conservative and suggest to them that anything we think about guns, drugs, rock and roll, whatever, is valid. Typically, in my experience, conservatives nowadays will cite very narrow experiences as proof of their position. I can't do that because, for instance, when you go to court, if you wish to persuade a judge that your position should prevail, the judge will say, why? And you can't say, because I believe. You'll never win your argument with a judge that way. The judge essentially wants you to say, do you have precedent? In other words, has a court before him or her ever looked at this type of factual case and ruled the way you're asking me to rule? So precedent is a persuasion in a court. So you bring together and you say, yes, Your Honor, there have been previous cases where very similar facts, not exact same facts, that's rare, similar facts, and the courts concluded, and here's why they concluded, and for that reason, I think you should rule for me. Okay. Another way of persuading, there is no precedent. So then how can I persuade a judge to rule in my favor? I have to extrapolate what I want and why that is closest to the character, the intention of the legal element we're discussing. So I want to say that my argument most closely reflects legal intentions as we know them in the United States. And I can't just say, well, in Ukraine, by the way, in Ukraine, there's a case, and no, has to be an American case or what we call the common law. And the common law derives from England. So you can say, well, back in England, when the common law was being created, judges and jurors and writers of law would talk about public policy. What is it that you're trying to achieve when you create a law? So when I'm trying to persuade a judge, if I have no precedent, then I want to argue public policy. What am I trying to promote and why is that a rational position to take and to have supported? Okay, so I'll give you, for instance, Illinois passed a law some years ago. It was a stupid ass law. And so we have a law in the books. It's called the law of accessory and accomplice. I call it that. And it says that if I participate in a crime, even though I'm not the criminal, I'm guilty of a criminal act. So in Illinois, they passed a law many years ago and said it is a crime to conceal a homicide after the fact, right? I mean, of course, it has to be after the fact. The person has to be dead, otherwise, it's not a homicide. So, why would you have a law saying that If you help conceal a homicide, you're guilty of a crime. So I get the case. I have a guy charged with murder, and they charge him with concealing a murder. Well, here's the loose fact pattern: kills his wife, hides the body, and they don't find it for a week. They find it for a week. He hid his own crime. My argument is, of course, he hid his own crime. I mean, that's just what you do. There's really, in a sense, there's a constitutional right to hide your own bad behavior. It's called the Fifth Amendment. I have a right not to do anything to incriminate myself, right? So I say to the judge, the charged with this, and the judge goes, that doesn't seem fair. Right. So we resolved this case on the murder charge, and the judge says, well, it's got this other charge hanging out there, concealment of a homicide. He's gonna have to do more time. I'm like, but you and I both talked about this. He didn't. I mean, it's his homicide to conceal. The law, Your Honor, of concealing a homicide was intended to dissuade somebody who knows the perpetrator from helping. So I kill somebody and I call up Chris and I say, Chris, man, I got this body in my living room. I killed her. I got to get rid of this. Can you come over, help me move the body, dig the hole and drop it in? That should be a crime. That would be concealing a homicide. Me taking the body out and burying it all by myself should not be a crime of concealing a homicide. Doesn't make sense. Okay? By the way, I lost the argument. The judge really didn't care. He wanted to run for judge again, and my case was high profile. So those are the ways you persuade. With conservatives nowadays, I don't see crafting arguments anymore that persuade or persuade. I think that's really the bottom line. I don't see any movement. For instance, even today, when we look at the Senate, and we're trying to move the country in a new direction, a more positive direction. I don't think anybody thinks that Biden's trying. What people do, the conservatives are still trumping that Biden is lost his, doesn't have his mind, and he's just a socialist, communist, anarchist. Most of you know that Joe Biden is a right-wing Democrat, very moderate, and he's talking about getting along with everybody, and they're telling him, screw you. So here's the thing. Typically in politics, if you have the majority of the country openly supporting a gesture, a political gesture, then everybody gets on board and says, people want this, so let's get together, Democrats, Republicans, let's pass this law and let's move forward, and we'll all take credit for it. Now you just simply have conservatives saying, yeah, we're not going to go along with it. Why? Because we're not going to go along with it. But why? And then you have these fallacious arguments. They don't make any sense. Ron Johnson. If he opens his mouth, if his lips are moving, he's either saying he's either lying, or he's just like a puppet. With Trump manipulating his mouth. Okay, Ted Cruz is another one, Josh Hawley. There's so many of them right now. So they're not making an attempt at bipartisan. Okay, initially you're on the right, you're on the left. You get together. The right says, well, I'm willing to concede and do some of what the left is suggesting, but I'm not willing to do the whole package. Why not? It's too expensive. What part's expensive? This part's expensive. Tell you what if we reduce that amount to this? Would that work? No, that's closer to it. And that's the way it goes back and forth, right? That's not happening, and it's not going to happen. I said it yesterday. The Democrats have no power. They're not going to create any real laws. They're just going to do a lot of executive actions because as long as there's a filibuster or and Joe Manchin, they simply don't have control of the Congress. So they'll achieve nothing. You need to control both houses, or you need to be able to compromise, to negotiate. You can't do that. And the same way you can't do that in Washington, you can't do it in Dallas, you can't do it in New York, you can't do it in Chicago, you can't do it in Boston. Nobody is allowing themselves to be persuaded. I'm open to the possibility that I'm wrong. I'm willing to listen, but I'm not going to keep listening to the same bullshit that I've been listening to for the last 4 years. In other words, if you're going to just, cite your make believes rather than your facts, you know. So I have a lot of right wing friends, or not a lot, and they say, they'll make an argument out masking or the pandemic. And here's the thing. I'm like, well, I know you believe that. And I know you have some anecdotal evidence, but we don't base science on anecdotes. And here's the thing. When something is embraced by the scientific community, it has to have been proven. It has to be beyond a reasonable certainty, scientific certainty. And so what happens is when you introduce a scientific concept, I'm trying to get the actual. I think I'm trying to find this phrase. Okay. Here we go. Oh, so I click and it changes based on a reasonable degree of medical certainty. Okay. This is a phrase used in court. You can't introduce so let's say that I want to talk about flu in a court case. Could be a civil case, could be a criminal case, doesn't matter. I tell the court I have a doctor and I wish to have him testify. And so, no, empirical is not it. So the judge says, okay, well, bring your witness in. Okay, I've got to do two things. I have to offer the prosecution or the other side's not instrument. I have to offer a curriculum vitae, a resume. I have to identify publications if this person's published. I have to where their education comes from, what they've been doing as a career. And I have to establish that this person can testify to a reasonable degree of medical certainty. If the judge says, why are you bringing me a general practitioner in here and offering him as his eye expert? This guy's never written anything about eyes. He's never handled any significant number of patients with eye problems. What are you doing, counsel? Well, I couldn't find a ophthalmologist, which is a medical doctor specialized in eyes. So I got this guy. Yeah. Okay. So, but here's what a lot of conservatives are doing with me. They're introducing some medical persona that doesn't measure up. I, on the other hand, I'm researching, and I literally researched Dr. Fauci because people were very angry with him back a year ago because he was saying no mask, stay in, go out, whatever. He contradicted himself initially. So I'm like, well, should I continue to believe this guy? People are telling me he's got a history of saying stuff that's not true. So I looked him up. Extraordinary background, extraordinary. And I've talked about it. He's the most published epidemiologist on infectious disease in the United States. Nobody has been published in journals, medical journals, more than he has on the subject of epidemiology. He's an extraordinarily good expert witness. If you come at me with Dr. Atlas, the radiologist, to talk to me about epidemiology or infectious diseases, I'm going to go, but he's a radiologist. What has that got to do? So his education, his experience, and a lack of publications in the field, if I have to decide who to believe, if I'm a court, if I'm the jury, and I introduced Fauci for whatever position on infectious diseases, and somebody else brings in Dr. Schultz, the podiatrist, the jury is supposed to sit there and go, yeah, well, that's a slam dunk. When we weighed the evidence, Dr. Fauci had the background, the experience, the publications, right? The other side, fluff, fluff. So how do I argue fluff with fluff? If what's happening today is, and Dennis was trying to say this, we don't make the effort to persuade persons who we believe don't agree with us. Now, that seems silly. Why do I only want to talk to people that agree with me? Because what is the point of talking to people who don't agree with me? All we're going to do is agree that we don't agree. That's I can do that without arguing. I can just say, oh, is that what you think? All right, well, we can agree to disagree. You can believe that. I don't believe that. I don't need to get into any disputes. I don't need to argue. I don't need to introduce to you any evidence I don't need to introduce you to empirical evidence. Empirical evidence is what you base scientific opinions on. So people do studies, and the studies have to present data. So the shot you all got for the vaccination you got, whether it was Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson. Let me explain. You probably know this. Studies were done. Facts had to be the result. Data had to be result of those studies. They had to give, let's say, 40,000 injections. Some were real, some were placebo. And then they had to study the outcome. They had to look at who got sick afterwards, who didn't get sick, how many of the placebo people stayed healthy, how many got sick, how many people got the vaccine. So, and they did all these numbers, and they had to say, so the people we injected were aged 60 to 70 years old. There were so many of them were women, so many of them were men. Some had comorbidity. That means they're pre-existing condition. So, and here's the results. That is scientific study. If you say, my doctor says if you take a lot of zinc and hydrochlux, whatever it was, you'll be better. And he says he's done this for many of his patients. That's anecdotal. Now, if the doctor comes in and upon questioning says, yes, I have treated 800 persons aged between this and that. I gave them zinc and hydroxychloroquine, and they all showed a reduction in symptoms within 3 days. That can be evidence. That can be compelling if this person is presenting these as facts. But my doctor said there's nothing about that that's compelling. It's not persuasive. If that's your argument, what am I arguing about, right? So I'm going to say, well, why don't you see what Dr. Fauci said, or why don't you see what Dr. Burke said, or why don't you see what Sanjay Gupta said? Why don't you look at people who are looking at the data or producing the data? It's very frustrating, but I'm not leaving the country. I'm not even leaving Dallas in the foreseeable future. If I leave at all, it'd probably be to go back to Tucson, because then I can hike and bike. All right. So the show is over, man. Don't you know? Right? Tomorrow is Saturday. I'm going to get out and I'm going to bike. Like I said, I'm going to leave the house at 5:15. I hope it's not raining. And I'm going to have a good ride. I'm building up to I can do 100 miles sometime this summer. And then, so that's what's up. I'm so glad that Mark and Ann have been showing up. It's nice to have homies. I got to tell you that. I really liked when John Asheners would come in from Japan and show up. I like the Cathys here. That's like really old school. Rose and Rachel and some of the other people, they go back about 25 years. That's almost like new friends, right? Compared to uh, the people that went, grew up with me on the south side of Chicago. And then Chris and Becky and Joan and Lisa uh, and whoever else, uh, they're my new friends. But here's something that's glorious. I say you can't make new old friends. And I'll always say that because that's just a fact, right? You got old friends. They're old friends because they've been your friend a long time. So you can't make new old friends because it's too late for that. And most of you know that Kathy's brother, Gary, was one of my oldest friends in the world. And when I lost him, he took so much with him of me, history, right? And so, Rose, if you've known me 40 years, you're still about 15 years short of uh, Anne and Kathy. And Mark's known me since I was about 11 years old. So that would be about 50 something years, right? I'm 68. So, but thank you for reminding me. It's more like 40 years. So, I've known Rose for about 40 years. I've known Rachel about 30 years. Um, but here's where I was going. The quality of relationships and my embracing of the presence of people from the past is really heartening. It's so easy to lose the past. The past dies. You dig what I'm saying? I hope. Gary died. Gary took some of my past with him. It's not fair, but that's the way it works. Um, when Mark showed up, McDougal, and said, "Oh, we were in Ontonigan together." I'm like, holy mackerel. I was a little guy. He's right. I didn't have that memory. I could never remember the cabin name, whether it was Jim Bridger or Ontonigan. I couldn't remember Shelley, the camp counselor. I couldn't remember people in pictures. And so it reinstated some of my past. I don't know about the rest of you. It's just Ken. Um, Having old friends, whether it's been consistent or they reappear, they go to a point in time that my memory is long abandoned. And so I'm just heartened that that's still there. I lament when I lost Gary. But then again, Gary and I had lost so many friends when they were young. For those of you that know me from the South Side, we had lost Preston when he was 23 and John Barrett, and so many died from drugs very young or suicide. And so they don't even have, when they died, they hardly had any history with me, right? Um, anyways, um, I am just simply intending to say to you all that it's nice to have a thread of life that you have shared with others. And I have been away from all y'all for a long time that have known me. I moved to Dallas. I've been with my daughters. I haven't been with Rose or Rachel or Kathy except for a day here and there, right? You're not you're not part of my history for the last 25 years. My history of the last 25 years was raising two girls, being in Dallas, buying and selling businesses, and that kind of thing. Getting strung out on drugs, getting sober from drugs. Yeah, I don't know if that made any sense. I got to go. 6:50, I went overtime. All right. I don't know who's still there. Facebook says somebody's there. Joan's probably hiding in the bushes. She'll jump out at the last minute. Becky says, we learned a song at campfire camp. Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver and the other is gold. Wow. That's kind of cool, Becky. That's right on point, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. So you and Chris and Lisa and some of these Dallas people. When I left Dallas uh, 15 years ago or so, 15, 16 years ago, people said why. Hi, Debbie. I forgot. Debbie, but Debbie, you were East Hyde Park. I was 57th Street. Um, the thing is, um, there she is. There's Joan. I know. So I see. I meant to close and then make new friends. The gold. Um, there's no the friendship I've created of late with Chris and Becky and Lisa a little bit, and Joan. These are qualitatively uh, relationships I value. They are absolutely bring value into my life today. Some people do not have a lot of past that they embrace. My oldest and dearest friend, Carrie, in San Francisco, has never been to a school reunion. He has very few friends from the past. I'm his oldest friend. He's got a couple other old friends and then some new friends. He doesn't go back to Chicago and look up people. He goes back to Chicago and sees his brother and his mother and his dad. There are people that just divorce themselves from the past for whatever reason. It's not a judgment. I'm not just saying. I am more of somebody who has carried my past by virtue of attachment. Kathy knows this because Kathy has been there when I have called the tribe that has been dispersed to all parts of the universe. When I've called the tribe together for one day every year, and every year have emphasized I want everybody to show up at the goddamn restaurant in Hyde Park and go out with me to the beach, what we call the point, and then go to a bar and sit there. I don't drink and just fellowship, just share. That I do that. Everybody doesn't do that. All right. Lisa, I'm very glad to be your new friend, Ken. Have a great evening, everyone. All right. But we have to end with a metta, with goodwill, with kindness and compassion. We have to because right now we're being assailed by a lack of goodwill, a lack of kindness. Take a deep breath. May I be happy, healthy, and free from harm, free from anger, anxiety, and fear. May this practice bring me to a place of greater peace and comfort, and may it alleviate my suffering. May my mother and father and all my family and all my friends be happy, be healthy, be free from all harm, finding the path that also leads to a cessation of suffering and to greater peace and comfort. And those persons that I have difficulty with, sometimes it's animosity, sometimes it's simply a resentment, but in any case, I still send them loving kindness. May they know goodwill. May they know I offer goodwill so they may be happy, healthy, free from harm, and enjoying their lives. And may all living beings, and when I say this, please understand, I'm talking cats and dogs and squirrels and rabbits and mice and rats. I'm talking plants and other living things. And I'm talking people. I'm talking Middle Easterners and Afghanis and Russians and North Koreans and South Koreans. I am not withholding goodwill. I'm sending it out so that all living beings may be happy, healthy, free from harm, able to live their lives in safety, peace, and comfort. Satu, Satu, Satu. Well, thank you, Mark and Ann, and I will have a great ride, I hope. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. Thank you, Liza. I forgot you were there. Thank you, Liza. And Debbie, and Joan, and Rachel, and Rose, and Kathy, and Becky, and Chris, and Rachel, and what I'm just doing the best I can. I don't know why I try to remember everybody or grab everybody's name off of this thing, right? I don't know, man. I mean, it just seems like the more personal, the more warm it was if it's personal. Peace.